This can't be a good idea right now, you know. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Matt Schechtner. I'm privileged to serve as the Global CEO of Advertising Week, and this is a real thrill for us. The creativity that the ESI team brings to Advertising Week Europe is really sort of the secret sauce of the whole thing. You know, there's a lot of stuff that we create out of our, little headquarters. But what really adds the paprika on the whole thing is the creativity of our partners. And you notice how I seamlessly threw that in, right? The team at ESI, led by John, who's going to carry the session forward, working with Rachel, with Dan, with Katie. This is an absolute product of a year-round effort. And I know them. We will start working on 2018 next week. ESI is with us throughout the week in many, many forms. I inexplicably got a back massage yesterday from one of your people downstairs. I think my water is from you. Most important of all, beyond sort of the brand activation stuff, they are bringing Mayor Sadiq Khan here on Thursday afternoon. Thursday will be a very big finish for us. We have Vice President Al Gore in the morning, and we will have Mayor Sadiq Khan in the afternoon. And we were so grateful to John and his team for bringing, I think, his message about London being open for business and inclusiveness, is very, very positive messaging, in particular with what's going on in my country, in Washington, D.C. at the moment, which is something that many, many of us all over the world are deeply disturbed by. So we are very grateful to have Mayor Khan here. London is also, of course, a great culinary city. I know that wasn't always the reputation many, many, many years ago, but I think what has happened here in the Renaissance in the culinary arts is tremendous. It's my favorite place in the world to come and eat. My culture, food is very high on our list. Culture and comedy are way above religion for me. This should be really, really exciting. We're very appreciative of ESI, and without further ado, my pal, a proud member of our advisory council, and Daisy's dad, John O'Donnell, the MD of commercial for ESI Media. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Matt. So yes, but I think Al and Sadiq can wait just for a day or so, because today we're going to enjoy a feast of a very different kind. See, I can do it as well, Matt. I can do it as well. Just before we start, just to let you know, so you have been eating, because of course we couldn't have a lunchtime session about food and not eat something. So Angela's team have painstakingly created with a brief that basically said nothing hot, nothing that involves a kitchen, nothing that involves knives, nothing that basically involves anything, but food is okay, but it's got to be within these three particular groups. Anyway, she did a brilliant job. And so the canapé that you've been eating is herbed polenta, calamata, did we do so? Yeah. I think we did. We decided calamata olive, manzano tomatoes, and caper salsa, as you all knew. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. That was fantastic. So, as you could probably tell from the start, my voice is leaving me slightly, which I think is a welcome relief to most of my team and probably to most of the panel as well. I think I've actually taken about 15 vocal zone tablets. So if I start resembling Leonardo DiCaprio in The Wolf of Wall Street at some point, you'll know exactly why. So hopefully we can get through the next 45 minutes. Anyway, right, so what is today all about? Well, food mainly, and London. But one of the big things I think that it's about experience, really. We did some research a little while ago, which obviously doesn't start it off in a very sexy way, so that's the last time I mentioned that. But we did this research on achievement, because what we wanted to try and find out was, particularly for people in London, what success was and what it meant to them, or what happiness was, and we were trying to sort of work out what that was. And one of the really interesting things that came from it was that it wasn't all the traditional metrics that you would expect. So things like salary and job title actually came way down the list. And the number one thing for everybody was the life experience, and whether or not that be going to Glastonbury, climbing Kilimanjaro, or having a fantastic feast. That was the thing that was a real barometer of achievement in life. So we thought, what an amazing idea to get together one of the greatest experiences you can have, which is, of course, food and eating, one of my favourite topics, and then put together some of the most brilliant people in that field on this particular panel. So I'm delighted to welcome, on this esteemed panel, to my right, Grace Dent, columnist, author and broadcaster. It's always good to get those in, isn't it? The triumvirate. Those of you who know, she's got a weekly column for The Independent, and she also writes her restaurant column in the Evening Standard, Grace and Flavour, which comes out every single Thursday. Grace has fronted documentaries for Sky Atlantic, Channel 4, W, and also the Radio 4 documentaries, Duration, and a tribute, and this goes on, by the way, Nancy Mitford. Grace is also a regular TV show guest, having appeared twice on Have I Got News For You, The Now Show, BBC TV's The Review Show, and it goes on and on and on. But what she's up to at the moment is she is the co-director or co-creative director of London Food Month, which will be taking place in June. Can I say this? I think I can, can't I?
You can say this.
I can say it now. This is actually the first time this has ever been announced anywhere, and David may leap over and punch me in the face now. But it's taking place at Perks Fields in Kensington Gardens in June. So very, very exciting stuff. Grace is helping co-create that. And so what it will be is a series of night markets, as well as getting hundreds of bars and restaurants involved across London. So it's going to be a brilliant, brilliant thing. Welcome to the panel, Grace.
Thank you.
So next to Grace is Dan Dove, and Dan has the best job title in the world, I think, actually. He's the world-class and luxury events manager for Diageo Reserve. And I always think you should just put a comma in there, just world-class luxury events manager. So Dan's got over 14 years' experience in the luxury hospitality industry, but a real strong background in bartender training before that, and events and restaurant management. And his expertise has centred around trend building, beverage marketing, and service and menu innovation. As part of his current role at Diageo, Dan is committed to creating unique and memorable luxury experiences in the top 1% of bars and drinks events around the world. Dan also spends much of his time as an international judge for one of the world's largest and most prestigious bartender competitions, World Class. And then finally, last but absolutely by no means least, is, of course, needs no introduction, Angela Hartnett, MBE. Angela, it's got to be done. Why are you not a dame yet? Come on, what's going on?
After the festival, it will happen.
Oh, yeah.
Let's nominate.
Good point. So, Angela's the chef and restaurateur behind the Cafe Murano restaurants in St James and Covent Garden, Merchant's Tavern in Shoreditch, Mayfair Murano, for which she holds a Michelin star. I think you've got a couple of places. You've got a place in Courchevel as well, is that right?
Yeah, and New Forest. Yeah.
And New Forest as well. So, Angela is known for her sophisticated yet simple Italy-inspired cooking. She's got 2 cookbooks to her name, Cucina and Angela's Kitchen. So, ladies and gentlemen, your panel. I've always wanted to say that. Right, so let's kick off first of all. I think the internet is an amazing thing. It's a wonderful enabler, and I don't think anybody in this room would disagree with that. However, apart from eating out, drinking, getting your hair cut, and possibly the oldest profession, it can't do everything. So how important is creating an experience when people go, for example, to one of your restaurants, rather than them just simply consuming stuff?
I think, hello everyone, thank you all for coming first. I think these days it has changed. I think whether it's social media through Twitter or Instagram, or the fact that TripAdvisor, people can be in your restaurant and actually reviewing you there and then. You know, the old media of the same. I mean, I was fortunate when we opened Murano. It was still that you waited for reviewers to come in and you got the review 2 weeks later. It wasn't as instant. But I think that has changed, that there's the experience. Everyone used to say it was all about the chefs and all about food. Now I think it's about the chefs, it's about the service, and it's about the room you're sitting in and the atmosphere. And it really, you know, it's everything. And drinks is included in the service side of it. I don't think anymore these restaurants have temples of gastronomy that you sit there in silence and the waiter's the god and the chef's the god. You know, at the end of the day, the choice is out there, and I think you have to move with the times quite rapidly, otherwise get left behind.
Yeah. What's your experience, Grace?
I think that, you know, I think that going out and eating has always been the entire experience. It isn't just the food, you know, because you can have lovely, you know, there's a few restaurants I could name off the top of my head right at the moment that have opened that the food is apparently lovely, but no one's going there because it's cold and it's sterile and lots of other things. And, you know, what drew me to writing about restaurants was, you know, 20 years ago when I got here, I would go out and I would eat and I'd go to these amazing places, but the next day when someone said, what's that place like on the Kingsland Road? What's that place like? You got an amazing, you know, you got a seat in that restaurant in wherever, you know, and I would be able to explain the entire experience, because it's who's in there, and it's what's the service like and what's the welcome like, and it's not just the quirks. Obviously, it's the food, it's the quirks, it's, you know, who's cooking there. So it's an entire experience. I think that's what people now in the modern day are just getting into more and more. You know, they want to go, and yeah, they want to photograph their food, but they want to have this entire kind of, you know, experience that's different, something they can tell other people about.
Do you think that this kind of relatively new concept of queuing, or, you know, certainly restaurants that don't take bookings, do you think that adds to the experience, or do you think it detracts from it?
I don't think queuing adds to the experience. Oh God, you know, I'm coming to terms with this now. It's taken me 5 years to stop ranting about queuing. But I understand why it's happening. I suppose this is it. I think that people have broken me down now because I understand why this has come about. I'm trying to think of a good example where, for example, the Barbary in Covent Garden, just beside Pineapple Dance Studios, and they've only got 15 seats. What's that guy called? Eyal Yagerman. He's one of the greatest chefs in London at the moment. And it's no reservation. So if you want to be there, you've got to get your arse in gear, and you've got to go with just one other person. And you need to be there, I would say 10 to 12, lurking around outside. So damn it, yes, it is an experience. And if you walked in and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's all been booked 6 months in advance," that wouldn't be exactly, and I'm sure as...
And you've got to stick... I remember Barafina, before they moved it into Quo Vadis, and it was Michel Roux Senior, so one of the longest standing chefs in this country. He'd emailed me, he goes, "Angela, we're going to the theatre with Martha, can you get us into Barafina?"
Yeah.
And I thought, Christ. And I said to Nevis, and then I emailed Sam and Eddie, and all of them said, "Angela, we would, but if we do it for you, we've lost all our credibility." And they said, "All we're going to say is get your butt here early with them and you'll be fine, you know."
But then you get in the queue,
can't do it,
and you get a little drink, and then you and it is actually...
And it's very, I think, continental, isn't it? You see that a lot in Spain and in the States, in New York. Yeah. They've been queuing for years. I mean...
Yeah. I suppose, Grace just mentioned drink, which I think is a really interesting point. I mean, you know, certainly the cocktail world has exploded really recently, and it's moved into way beyond Tom Cruise and Brian Brown killing it all those years ago. It's now become a really, really classy experience. I mean, how have you found that, shows, and how do you kind of create experiences there? You didn't tell me to rewrite something. Sorry, it's your fault.
I didn't mean like that, though.
Carry on, Dan, sorry. Carry on.
Anyway, sorry.
Hi, everyone. I think it's had a massive influence, especially London. Especially, you know, there's an award ceremony that goes on every single year, the 50 best bars by Drinks International. You know, 5 of the top 10 bars in the world are based here in London. And you know, the trend that you see going throughout all of those bars is that they're all experiential led. They take a lot of influence off of food and off of great chefs. You know, whether it's through technique, ingredients, the experience when you walk into the door, to the lighting, to every single part of that, and down to the vessel, and from the moment you leave. But every single part of that is the one common theme you find throughout bars, specifically restaurants, but now specifically bars over the past decade. That we always look at the way that we build menus as well. I think about 10 years ago, if you was to open and run a bar, create a drink, you would focus firstly on the glass, then build a drink, then build the story and the concept. And now that's completely reversed. So we're seeing concept, story being built first, then look at the vessel, glass, then look at the ingredients. And so that change really has come around through experience.
You mentioned then, about London. I mean, why is it, do you think, that London is becoming, or is just so important and influential now in sort of food and drink?
For me, it's the mixed cultures is big for me. You know, with the diversity we've got in London, especially now we're seeing over the past 2-3 years, bartenders are taking the line of where chefs have gone over the past decade, travelling the world, taking inspiration from different ingredients, different cultures, and bringing them back home to London. It's also become a pool for absolute talent in the top end of the bar industry. And so with all of the diverse integration and information from all over the world, it creates this amazing buzz in the top end of the bar trade and complements food perfectly.
Do you find that? Because I mean, obviously you've chefed, you know, all over the place and around the world and everything. I mean, do you find that that's why? Is that, you know, we don't like some sort of major cities like France is great if you want brilliant French food. It doesn't, for example, have different courts and different pockets of other. You know, we have everything because we're such a melting pot of cultures and a welcoming melting pot. You know, do you find that that's what sort of makes it? It's all those different cultures coming together.
I think that's what makes London, certainly for lots of many reasons, but certainly the food scene. It does make it so much one of the most interesting capital cities in the world, I would say, from food. I'd put it on a par now with New York, if not better, and certainly on the lines of Tokyo, because I think we have the variation. Because, you know, we have the best Chinese, Indian, Japanese. I would have said 10 years ago, New York was beating us on the Asian side of everything. But I think now we've got some of the best Japanese food in London, Chinese, Indian, you know, Mongolian, everything. We literally now we've got South American coming. You know, I'm sure there's going to be a Norwegian restaurant soon. I'm betting on it.
Syrian,
everything.
Really
so you know,
it's
amazing.
amazing.
There was that chap that had the pop-up
in
the house. Yeah, they all sort of paid for him to have the to open a Syrian restaurant because he used to be a chef. Fascinating.
Shouldn't say
Sorry,
that.
we're just chatting amongst ourselves.
There you go.
And what do you think? Why do you think London's so brilliant on that?
Well, I think, you know, one of the main reasons that I kind of ran towards the project that you were putting together, open-armed, and said you need to let me in on this for London Food Month is because, you know, I don't kind of feel we might be getting quite good at food in London. I feel the same as you guys. You know, I'm not bashful about it. I think that London is the best place that you could eat. You know, there's 300 languages spoken here. You know, the way that we are all kind of, you know, at this point as well, I think we find a real solidarity in each other in food, because we might read the news and we go, God, this all looks really gloomy and as if we don't all get along. That's rubbish. Then you leave your house on a night and we're all sitting and eating in different places together, sharing each other's cultures. And I kind of wanted, with London Food Month, to celebrate that, you know, this is positive. It is relentlessly positive. You know, obviously there's big downsides, there's big challenges in having restaurants and in being in the industry. But with regards to what we are doing, it's incredibly positive, you know, at this point where it feels gloomy about Brexit and how we look towards the rest of the world and we're not welcoming people, but that isn't our case, you know. And you know, when I talk, you know, so many different people are representing themselves and feel at home here through their food. You know, I was just saying about this, you know, the new wave coming through of like Syrian people. We can talk and talk and talk about Syria, but the absolutely beautiful thing is when you see someone that's come from Damascus, managed to get themselves here, you know, had 5 restaurants, been an entrepreneur, lost everything, and then people around here have all grouped together, like so many people in the industry, got him a start, found him a PR, found him a pop-up place, and he's selling out because people in London go, I want to know what that food is. I want to know, you know, like Tim Clark and Wellboy is an Instagram person, you probably know him, and he's been working on this thing and he's going to work with us with London Food Month. You know, and he went to all the different chefs and said, can you just do a recipe that represents something with Syria? And they all said, well, I don't know anything about it, tell us what it is. And he said, no, you go and find out. So what in the end, we've got hundreds and hundreds of people that have got into this. So things like that will happen at London Food Month. It's celebrating good news stories.
Yeah, great. Well, and I think that sums up London.
I'm worried about your throat. Are you okay?
No, it's okay. No.
I really am now. I feel like I'm...
I'll put my hand up literally when
I know. I feel like you're just going to fall sideways.
My 4th vocal zone in a minute. So
Okay.
I should be all right. I mean, you're right. I mean, I think food is a great sort of enabler in London. It brings people together, and I think that's the wonderful thing about it. And, you know, I think you're right. I think Food Month, that's what hopefully it will do, and it'll introduce people to new things that they wouldn't have done before. I mean, from a drinks perspective, I mean, do you think that cultures have sort of impacted the way, you know, you potentially look at different brands and look at, you know, different artists and things, and, you know, the way in which you might move forward as a business? I mean, does that affect you at all, that kind of thing?
It does. I think you know, innovation for Diageo is a key part to moving forward.
Yeah.
You know, we're continuously looking. We have some of the best specialists in the drinks trade, from our brand ambassadors. You know, in the trade, we're continuously looking for trends, what's going forward, what consumer behaviour, how consumer behaviour changes, and how it will change from now until up to 2050. I think it's key as a business to move forward to make sure you're on the line all the time. I think if you're not in this top end of the trade and working with fabulous chefs like Angela and in the 50 best bars around the country, it's very difficult to keep in connection with that and move forward as a business. But the insight is really key for us.
Cool. So you mentioned there trends. I'm going to do this. So Number 1, grain.
When are these trends?
Number
now,
2,
right now.
so these 2017, right? Grain.
Great.
Orange
Hate
wine.
these lists.
Orange wine. Ital, which is apparently Jamaican cuisine. Pickling stuff rather than making jams
Okay.
and things. Insects. Every year it's
Every
the year
year.
of the insects, right?
Every year.
It's never happened.
Not gonna happen.
It's like the year of the mobile. I mean, it's like finally it's the year of mobile. Is it ever going to be the year
I
of
once
insects?
sometimes they give us, I went to a launch and I got given 2 boxes of those insects, dried, honey-encrusted, sugary insects. And I left them in the side, and everyone that came to my house, I said, you can have them if you want. Not one person wanted them. And then eventually I gave them to someone that does street makeup, and they used it for zombies.
No.
Do you know what I mean? To kind of make people into zombies with flies. So I maybe put that on the list. But
Oh, sorry, that reminds me. In the small thing, sorry, I forgot the final ingredient was scorpion ears. Sorry about that. Right, anyway, move on to this. Seaweed or turmeric or other weird stuff on pizza bases.
Okay.
Scandi wine is apparently coming in. Miso with basically everything. Rambutan, which sounds like a really good drum and bass group, but it is apparently like a lychee, but richer. DIY is coming in, so make your own yoghurt, cheese, charcuterie. I mean, I really don't want to go to someone's house. Look, I've made my own yoghurt.
Life's too short to make your own
Yeah, it really
yogurt.
is. And then finally, just to top the list
Isn't it?
off, camel milk.
No.
No.
Okay, so the question I have to the esteemed panel is, who makes this shit up, right?
Me.
So, exactly. So is it the chefs, is it the producers, or is it the writers?
I'll tell you how
Grace.
that comes about. These lists come about in
go.
December,
There you go. Own it.
December the 7th, December the 8th every year when you're in the middle of Christmas party season. You start to get
They've got
really
nothing else to write.
honestly, you get really angry emails from sub-editors saying we need the trends for next year. And then I personally then get into a furious row going, it isn't like that, you know. You can't just say these are the trends. They come through kind of organically next year. And then they go, no, give us the list. And then you end up writing things like this. You end up...
So it's your fault, Grace. Is that it?
It's the game we play. Because some of this has... I mean, there's pickling stuff, definitely. There is Freddie, what's Freddie's name? Freddie Jansen that works
Yes,
at
that's
She
right.
is
Yeah,
an
yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
incredible...
He does it, yeah.
The forefront of pickling. Yes.
But don't you think it's
miso
odd
with
that-
everything. I did
why is it a
MasterChef the
trend?
other day and
People
everyone was
pickled
putting
40 years ago. My mum pickled.
I know, that's
you
it. Exactly.
That's what annoys
Can
me
I say,
about
for the benefit
it.
of the tape, I have never pickled in my
Have you
entire
not?
life. Damn it,
No.
you should. I should.
But it's
I'm
like
alone, right.
foraging. When foraging comes through, it's just like bramble picking.
Yeah,
isn't it, when you're a
exactly,
kid?
you know.
But anyway, yes, I think that these are probably interesting for a steer, but I think that the story's far bigger. And what I don't like about trends is when they say, this year we're all eating tacos. Tacos.
That's the big one. Everyone's saying tacos. Yeah, exactly.
And then you get 20 taco restaurants, and then next
They all
year we're going
fold,
to turn around to
literally.
all these people with small businesses and go, this year we're
Yeah,
all
sorry,
eating.
tacos.
Bye.
Yeah.
And which is, because at the moment the trend, as you're saying, the trend isn't Japanese food, but
Yeah.
in the meantime, we have the best
Yeah.
Japanese. These chefs are becoming absolutely incredible. No one's talking about it. So
So-
I am again. But look, this is. Don't hate the player, hate
Right.
the game.
Okay. I like that. I like that. Can I tweet
Hate the sub-editor.
Treat that, yeah.
So,
but
what do you do? I mean, so Dan, for example, so you look down this and you've got orange wine there and you've got Scandi wine on there. I mean, how for a big business like Diageo?
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, like fashion, you have to look to the trends. You look what the forecasters are doing as well as what the people on the street are doing. How much of that do you look at it and go, actually, we're in the same zone, or we should be doing that? I mean, do you take notice or do you?
Yeah, I think
Follow your own nose, so to speak.
there's a fine balance, as Grace said. I think we get the consumer behavioural insight globally. Look at our macro trends, the way the globe's changing, and out of that you get pockets of trends that you can pull out, like zero waste, sustainability, all of those top line trends. When you get down to the detail, it is much more organic, and you have to be in it, in the trade, to notice it almost month by month change.
Yep.
That isn't something that you can predict 2 years down the line at the top end.
Yep.
On a macro level, you can. So if we're looking in a pipeline for Diageo, looking at creating certain spirits with certain flavours, we always have to take a macro view of, and certain products that we might be using down to changes like sustainability and move to that direction.
Yep.
But things like on the turn insects, we did create some Johnny Walker Blue Label insects, and I did leave them in the office, and all of them went within 24 hours.
Did they? Savages.
I haven't eaten. Has anyone here eaten insects?
Yep.
Oh, there we go. Who else apart from the chef?
Come on, mate.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. I mean, I'd say that's a fairly small penetration of the market there, really. So, right, it's not going to be Year of the Insect. I think that's pretty clear.
But I was going to say, though, you know, when you say about the kind of, when you're right in the industry, like we are every day, and it's that becomes the idea of you seeing these tiny little trends coming through and what becomes slightly naff and what becomes slightly overdone and seeing other people's Instagrams and what are they doing, and that's what's so addictive about this industry. It's so addictive, you know, every time I'm like on the central line in the morning, I have to go to a meeting and I've got my face in someone's armpit and I go, right, that's it, 20 years, I'm out of this city, right? I've had enough. And then I go, and then I try and go, and I spend quite a bit of time, if I'm not doing things, I'll go up north to see my family. And then you see and you see the micro trend that you've started to turn your nose up about in a very nice way in 2007, and it's the big idea of the pub that's opening in this place. And you have to really not be a London idiot. I was going to say something ruder there. London, whatever, and go in and go, oh, jam jars, great, you know. Oh, look, it's cranberry. So I think that's what becomes so addictive about London, that if you're in here and you're following the industry, you feel as if you can't almost take your hand off that, because it's a bit of a, I was going to say it's a bit of a high. It is. It's a bit of a high to be amongst it.
I suppose the other thing as well is that, you know, unlike fashion, where you've got, you know, literally a high-end elite catwalk that takes place, and then that gets picked up by Kim Kardashian or whoever, and then that gets then picked up by the cast of Towie, and then after that, everyone in the street is still doing. With food, it's a lot more immediate, really, and word of mouth has always been a really sort of big part of that. I mean, obviously, in the advent of social, and I know you're a key proponent in that particular world, I mean, how important do you think that has been for the industry, basically?
Completely changed it.
Yeah.
God, you know, I could talk about this for hours. What's social done? Well, I mean, I think that at one point, people like me, like say 10 years ago, we had almost all the cards, didn't we? We had so much power, and you know, not just for reviewing and slating and building people up, but also for breaking stories. You know, like to actually, and now that's all been swept aside. You know, by I think Instagram is probably the biggest one. For me, not so much Snapchat, not so much WhatsApp, not so much Twitter even. To me, it's kind of Instagram. It's those. Well, do you know, are they kids? No. There's some of them are about my age, but they're very, you know.
Young
I'm fascinated by them. You know,
do you sort of use it as a kind of, you know, just a review vehicle, or do you actually sort of base, you know, real decisions on it as a chef and an owner?
I think you can follow stuff. I mean, you don't sort of. I think you've got to be careful about following everything that's new at the moment. You know, there was a stuff. I was just talking about, because I was doing a menu change yesterday, and cold cut onions. And there was a while you saw them on every menu with Romanesco.
There's another one.
You know, and you sort of see that, and you just think someone's done it, and now they're all following. And everything was charred for a while. I think I think it's the announcement, but because it's Twitter and Instagram is so instant, I miss stuff. I mean, you know, someone will say to me, "Oh, have you heard?" And I'll go, when the hell did that happen? Because unless you literally physically are on it 24/7, you commit. But you're right now. Press releases. If we open a new restaurant, you don't do a press release anymore. You speak to Grace or you speak to Richard Vines, and you go, will you Instagram it or will you tweet it? And that's how everyone starts to know about things these days, which is unbelievable. You'd never have thought that would have changed the restaurants like that.
I mean, you know, as a brand, I mean, presumably it's really, really important to your marketing, I would imagine.
Of course it is. I think it's really important for bars and restaurants specifically as well, though. You're starting to see the movement of bars and restaurants employing, you know, in-house photographers and videographers, because, you know, to now launch a menu as a 60-second clip online actually has an enormous pull, even just to build, you know, the opening launch of a certain menu or a restaurant itself. But videos and pictures are key, and I think that's where we come back to experience at the beginning, what we spoke about. With experience, generally comes amazing visuals. And, you know, that really pushes the line. Instagram is definitely key for us as well.
There's a downside with Instagram, you know, in my darkest hours when I'll be furious about them, and I'll think, you don't criticise anyone. You don't have to do the thing that I do, where because I can't be relentlessly sunny about everyone. I have to sometimes tell the truth, or I'm letting everyone here down that's got 150 quid to spend on a weekend, and I'm not going to send them somewhere that's crap, you
Yeah,
know, if
yeah.
I don't think it's very good.
Yeah.
But Instagram, they just go, oh my God, this is just great. I'm just remembering this bacon sandwich, which was great. And it's completely, and I think, well, it's very good for saying we are here, but it isn't going to say I went here and it was a bit rubbish.
Doesn't give you the full picture.
However, I don't want to I'm not going to slag off Instagrammers because I meet a lot of them along the way, and their work ethic is incredible, you know, because a lot of them have got other jobs as like proper jobs, like that requires them to be incredibly dynamic. So they've just got a spreadsheet of where they want to be and at what time, and they do that on a Saturday and a Sunday when I'm like lying about in track pants. They're out doing their second job. I try not. So I can't, you know, I don't think you can go, oh, these lazy Instagrammers.
No, not at
They
all.
don't know that they haven't got my art because they're really hard working.
I think
And they change
I think what's
things,
great
you know?
though is that you know, for all of that, I still think that the traditional review within whether it be a newspaper or a news brand or publisher, I think still holds a lot of weight. I mean, just a sort of personal question here. I mean, do you find that the relationship is therefore easy between restaurant and writer?
No.
You know, when you do, so is it all? Are you always treading that really fine
Yeah, it's all,
line?
yeah.
Name names.
It's edgy.
No, yeah, exactly.
It's edgy. Well, I mean, you've got me in a headlock a few times. No, you haven't. No, it's
That's what I'm trying to get to.
It's hard because you are having to be honest about chefs who have put their heart and their soul into what is often a team project and hasn't maybe happened as well as they wanted to, or they've just done something really foolish, and you have to be honest. And you're dealing with chefs, and it's like, well, you know, like, I mean, you are a very good example because you're normal. I was actually, that's not. You're not actually. You're lovely, but some chefs don't get any sleep. And they, you know, and they're very passionate and they're very angry, and that is why they should not be allowed social media after midnight. It's like the gremlins.
They have a bit Trump-esque sort of tendencies.
So I would say social media, very good for all of industry, not good for chefs at 1 o'clock in the morning when they've been on a service for like 22 hours and they're just having that first cold beer, and then they see that somebody's
not a good time.
said something. So yeah.
Right. Okay. Mental note, everybody.
But, yeah.
So just, you know, I mean, obviously you're co-creative director of Food Month. I mean,
with Tom Parker Bowles.
With Tom Parker
I feel like
Bowles.
I should mention Tom.
I should mention Tom Parker.
He's not Hicks, he's in China.
Tom Parker Bowles is in China. We've mentioned him 5 times.
There you go. There you go. He's flying the flag for Britain, for London in China right
Exactly.
at the moment.
There you go.
I excuse him.
But so as a restaurateur, I mean, how important is it that events like that, where you can actually sort of, you know, get food and drink and new experiences to people who probably won't walk in your restaurant and they probably don't get to see or, you know, taste all these things? How important is that sort of getting out to you?
I mean, it's hugely important, I think, as well, because we there's lots of ideas floating around, but one of the things, and we were looking at, and we're going to do a Sunday for like college kids or sort of industry chefs who are commies or waiters, because, you know, much as I love our industry, it's not the best paid in the world. And I was fortunate when I started training in London, I lived with family, so I never really had to pay any rent, and I could afford to go out and eat in restaurants and educate myself a bit more. But if you're a commie chef who's travelling 2 hours every night home, you can't. So we're going to open Murano a couple of days and just say it's on us. Just come and experience it. Have a great time. We're going to get suppliers to sponsor it, and, you know, and see which college kids do a competition, get them to put their food on the menu.
How are you doing this?
We're going to do this for you, Grace, but we haven't got it organised yet. So now I've said it, I have to do it, because I say a lot.
Oh my God! But, write it down, someone. Write it down.
But it is that sort of thing about sort of, you know,
Verbally
I think
binding.
we're a
Right.
great city and we have great food in this country, but I do think you need a bit of cash.
Yeah.
There is not necessarily to go and eat out, because I think there's so many affordable places now. But I think if we want to change sort of the way we are as a culture with the hospitals and obesity and everything, food should be affordable. And I don't think we have got that yet. That would be my thing.
Are you worried about it? Because there's a lot of talk about, you know, food for the future, you know, sustainability. I mean, you know, as someone who buys products, I mean, does it worry you?
Well, I think one, food waste, which again, it's the London
it's a big
Restaurant
part of it,
Month. I've said that right now. I keep saying London Restaurant Festival. It's London Restaurant Month.
London Food Month.
We're with the Felix Project, you know, and that's all about food waste. We've just signed up Cafe Murano with this guy who's a gardener out in West London, so he's going to come and collect all our food waste, turn it into fertiliser, and those sort of things. And I think the more people start doing that, I think it's hugely important. I think, you know, we're destroying the planet slowly but surely with so many things that we're doing. And I think we all have a responsibility to the next generation. God, I sound boring, don't I? Sorry, but we do. We all have a bit of responsibility, and I think chefs really do.
And what about you know, a company like, you know, Diageo, a huge, enormous business? I mean, clearly that must be at the heart of it. What sort of things are you doing to sort of look at sustainability in the future?
We have a number of projects that we're working on at the moment, but you know, a lot in production of spirits, the amount of water that's being used, and we definitely have a few initiatives looking at that. You know, we know by the year of 2050 that 40% of the world's water will be undercut by the population, almost 10 billion. So it's massively important for Diageo, and we look at, you know, everything from a production level even into the on-trade, and working with bars of zero waste. You know, as chefs, we're really looking at, you know, how do we utilise one ingredient, and you know, we're even seeing bars have no bins now in there, so that literally zero waste into the full production of a menu, which is a massive step forward in, you know, comparison to 2 or 3 years ago even.
Well, it's good. I mean, you know, what's encouraging, though, is that everybody from, you know, writers to chefs to producers are bothered about it, you know, and care about it, and I think that's a really, really key thing. I'm just noticing here, this has changed colour, so I think this is telling me I've not got very long left. We want to get some questions in, and before my voice turns into a pumpkin. Right, just quickly, one last thing is the obligatory. Give me one of, not all, either your best, your worst, or your dream restaurant experience in London.
Oof. Oh, is this me?
I'm just looking at you, but it could be anyone. See how confusing that is. Angela.
Oh, well, you go first, because I'm trying to think
my best restaurant experience. Oh, Christ. In London. It has to be London.
Yeah, why not? Well, do you know what? We can widen the field if you want.
Oh, Christ. I think probably... I think it wasn't my worst Western experience because I never went, but because I refused to go when I heard about it. And it was all when the trend of burgers were becoming, you know, they were the trend 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And a friend of mine ran, he goes, you've got to come. And he goes, but there's no glasses, there's no toilet, and they serve it on a napkin. I said, get lost. I'm not coming and paying 12 quid for a burger without a napkin, a glass. And he said, you can't go to the loo. I said, no, forget it. No chance of doing that. So that would have been my worst experience. My best, oh God, so many. I mean, even last night I went to Noble Rot. I just think those are my sort of restaurants. It's a great wine list that's affordable, it's good food, and the service is just spot on. I think there's so many places you can eat in London, it's very hard. But yeah, I think Noble Rot, I think Fergus at St John, you know, I think the first time you eat a classic dish like the bone marrow with the parsley, you know, stuff like that. I think, you know, or you have oysters at Sheiky's, you know, everyone always talks about New York and having your martini, looking at the Empire State Building, but I think London's great in this sort of, you know, when you had your first piece of sushi or having a curry, you know, going to, typical me, I went to the kebab place, Lahore, you know, totally ignorant. I said, I'll have a beer. There's no license. Come on, you know. So, you know, then you go to the shop and that sort of thing. And that's what London's about. It's all the different experiences, which I think are great.
Brilliant. Dan?
I guess I'll go from a drink perspective. In a bar, I think we discussed it earlier, but the Connaught for me is one of my favourite bars. I'm privileged enough to judge world class, and, you know, I've judged thousands of bartenders over the years. The one that sort of stuck out to me, I went to the Connaught once to judge one of the bartenders there, and they have the famous Tanqueray 10 trolley that sits in the Connaught. So I went in there expecting to have some form of martini off the trolley, but they took me out into Grosvenor Square outside, and they had the trolley dressed in the park, and they'd foraged all the ingredients from central London, and they created a drink experience in the park.
Amazing.
So, yeah, that was amazing for me.
Brilliant. Grace?
I have to be really careful about going back over places that are horrible, because I've already hit them once, and they're still furious.
Do it again.
The worst restaurant, without saying that, the worst restaurant in London is Shaka Zulu in Camden. And I just literally, if they want to have a go at me, they can bring it, because I'll just get my review and read it out to them again. It's a South African theme restaurant in. It feels a little bit like an Allied carpet warehouse. It's got with kind of like big kind of papier-mâché tribute, like papier-mâché animals. It's got an escalator in the middle. It's just awful. Like, it's like when you go to it turns into a nightclub about 9:15 when you're eating.
You're eating and then the music's like boom, boom, boom.
And when you go to the toilet, like someone's trying to like sell you a chupa chup. I've taught myself back into going.
Brilliant.
Actually,
Brilliant. We should get them involved.
One of my favourite places to go, and I'm in there a lot, is the Colony Grill.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
I'm in the Colony Grill quite a lot on Friday night because I eat in lots of places like you're talking about where you get there and they go, and you just sit on an upturned bin and no reservations. So if you just stand out in the rain and there's actually we've not got any glasses.
Nice to have a bit of luxury,
and
isn't it? Napkin.
So
You asked too much.
Exactly. I like to go somewhere on a Friday where they call me Madam and there's a tablecloth.
Lovely. Simple things. Simple things. Knife and fork, not essential.
Exactly
but wonderful. Thank you very much. Right, well, we've got 4 minutes, 14 seconds, and I think we've probably got time for a few questions. So let me throw it out to the audience. I think there's someone with a microphone there.
I didn't know there was Robin, Mike.
Have a look. Anyone there?
We just talked right through.
No questions. Good Lord.
No.
Oh, no, we have. There we go.
This lady there.
Lady over there. Nearly got away with it.
Yeah, we did.
Camel milk chocolate tastes like Caramac, by the way.
Karamac's good though, so
Great.
Not to sound too much of a stalker, Grace, but I remember an article you wrote a few years ago. And I wondered if you were going to bring it up about your worst experience, but I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but it was a very visceral dessert called Sex on the Beach.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh, I know what
right. Do
restaurant
you know
that
what?
was.
Yeah.
Alvin, what's he called?
It was that one. It was the where near Jason's
Exo?
Pollen Street down there. It was the guy from was it Shanghai or somewhere?
He
or Hong
said
Kong? From Hong Kong.
Called. He opened a place and it was called. He was like, "I'm going to take you on a journey." And it was about 18 courses. I say after 6, that's just technically kidnap because you should be allowed to leave. And I remember that we stayed, and in the end he went, "I'm going to bring a pudding out," and it was called Sex on the Beach. And it was two sugar spun used condoms.
Lovely.
What? Horror.
There you go, and that's the face I pulled. And it came out, and it was on sherbet sand. Sugar spun, and I shouldn't be even saying this. I realise that some of you are quite shocked. I've told this story so many times, I'm immune to it. It was £500 for 2.
Jesus.
And when I left, I'm not using the depression lightly. It sent me into a depression about my life. Yeah. And I remember just feeling for about 3 days after this real introspective doom about everything I'd created in my life, because it was, I think, right at that point, I was just like, I can't believe that I even I should have just stood up and left.
Yeah.
And then I said it. I think he's gone.
He's gone. Yeah, he closed down.
He's not.
pretty
Well, I think
soon.
it's
He's dead
After
now.
that review,
I can't say why.
next day.
Good Lord, we should bring that back.
So yes, was there a question?
I think that those experiences of, as you say, 18-course tasting menus are kind of getting fewer and far between because kind of things like street food and affordability have made things more accessible and authentic.
I don't know if I don't think it is getting fewer and far between. I think that when I think people are pushing back against that, and because I see the list, like there's about 250 new openings a year in London, and I'm constantly scanning them. And I am constantly trying to, I shouldn't say this, I'm constantly trying to not have to go to places like that, because I know that I should, but I'm kind of working on this theory in my head that there's different ways of having dinner. There should be different words for dinner, almost. We need like 20 different words for dinner. And sometimes dinner is, I just want to go to chicken sours and eat a chicken burger that's that big, with chips, and kind of feel a bit, And then there's things like that where you are being taken on a, I'm thinking of some amazing restaurants like Pigeon and Ellery and that, and you do go, but you are being taken on a 7, you're being given things you wouldn't eat before. But I don't know, it is dinner, but sometimes you do come out of a lot of those places and we're thinking, I would like to go to McDonald's. And I don't mean that in the sort of way it does happen.
On that bombshell, I think that's it. We're actually out of time now, so I'd just like to give a round of applause to our panel, Grace Dent and Angela Hartnett. Just about stumbled through. And thank you, everybody. Hopefully, we will see you in June at Food Month. Thank you. Cheers.